Well, good evening, attendees. I see we've got a good number of folks attending, which is wonderful since we had a beautiful day today. So thank you for taking this time out of your evening to learn a little more about the discretionary bonus program. As usual, my name is Jackie Kraftrack. I am here to do a live interview with Greg Winter. I'll get him on the live screen in just a moment. But today we're going to talk for about 15 minutes, which usually is more like 17 minutes. We're going to talk about the discretionary bonus program, which, as you know, is one of the things that makes the IFMC unique. So we're actually gearing up for the bonus distributions yet this week, I believe, as long as everything continues to go as planned. So let's go ahead and get Greg on the live screen, and we will talk to him more about that program. Hi, Greg.
Hello, Jackie. Hello, everyone.
All right, you ready to talk about some money?
I think so.
Okay, so this bonus program, the discretionary bonus program, it is my understanding that it hasn't always existed like it does today. So can you kind of give us a brief history of where it came from and how it's sort of morphed to what it is today?
Sure. It'll probably help to give just a little bit of history here. Deb, Ron, and I grew up on a farm. We were very accustomed to not getting a regular paycheck. So on the farm, you get paid in fits and starts, and when you sell crops and so forth. And so that's just kind of the culture that we came from. And then, of course, when we started in business, that was kind of our expectation. And in a startup business, that's pretty normal. As a startup, you're struggling just to take care of the customers, just to get paid, just to make the sales cover your costs. And so, it was pretty natural to start that way, with the intent that at the end of the year or at some point, we'd look at what was left over and treat ourselves with a little bit extra dollars if we could afford to do it at that point. And so that's kind of the culture of how that started. Over the years, we really started the main company that most of the folks are familiar with here, Omni Metalcraft, as a startup, focused on that for about the first decade, and then discovered that it was pretty hard to scale a company when you're up in Northeast Michigan, up at the end of a peninsula, and your customers are somewhere outside the state. And so what we chose to do there is, instead of trying to scale Omni even bigger, although we kept striving to do that, we started other smaller units, because that works in Northeast Michigan, works in the conditions that we have here. And so what we tried to do is find the sweet spot where we were working on special things. We weren't trying to build commodities. We could optimize the operating income of those business units. And so we got to the point where we were able to start sharing with others, and in the form of bonuses. And that really has developed that program to date. The bonus program at the business unit level really hasn't changed much from the early days. The bonus program from the IFMC level has changed considerably, because the IFMC didn't really get started until a decade into Omni's existence. And so there's a number of different changes there. But if I use an analogy here of that I think a lot of folks will understand, in baseball, when you start out, you're sometimes in T-ball, and then you might move up to Little League and Babe Ruth and high school ball, college ball, and maybe go all the way to the major leagues and maybe even an all-star World Series team. And so that's kind of the pathway with baseball. With startup business units, we were kind of starting as T-ball. I mean, we weren't that far from that end of the spectrum, and so we weren't really making a lot of money. We didn't have a lot to share. After we developed a little further, we were able to now almost start a league of our own. So kind of like the American League or the Western League. We now have our own league of startups, so to speak, where we can optimize for location in Northeast Michigan. And as a result of that, we've got bonuses that are handed out at the business unit level, but really benefit from the IFMC. And so how has that changed over time? Basically, it's the same culture, if you will, at the business unit level, but we've been able to add and enhance that through the IFMC and that collection, that consortium of companies.
That's a great answer. Thank you for that. So when you and whoever else is at the table, I'm assuming Matt and Deb, and I don't know who else, but when you guys are talking about what number are these pots of money that we can distribute that then the leaders can take and figure out how they're going to distribute, what that number is going to be, what kinds of factors are you looking at when you're coming up with that number?
Well, basically, it's the performance of the business units as well as the performance of the value streams and the performance of the IFMC. And so if I talk just a little bit about value streams, we call a collection of companies where you've got orders coming in from customers for a particular type of product or maybe for a particular market that come into a sales unit, and then the supply chain that relies upon as the value stream. And we look for patterns there, try to organize the companies in ways that optimize the competencies that are needed for a given market, for a given set of customers. And so that's what we call a value stream. And so an example of that most people probably are familiar with would be the shredder value stream, where we've got Amos selling shredders to customers all over the world. They're buying other services and products from Amerishred Industrial, from some of the other common process units like Metal Tech and PMI and so forth. And so that's what we call a value stream. So we're looking at what is the performance of the business unit itself, what is the performance of the value stream, what is the performance of the IFMC, and that's really how we then determine how much is available at each business unit.
Okay, and that process starts, if we're looking at October distribution or almost November, that process actually starts much earlier in the year. So in March or April, is that correct?
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to put a particular timeline on it because most people have probably heard me say repeatedly, what's that going to do for our bonuses? Mm-hmm. And, so we're always thinking about that and always striving to understand that. As far as the actual process itself, yeah, that starts a few months ahead of time to give time for reasonable consideration, because it takes a long time it takes a lot of time to really understand the numbers at the IFMC level, at the value stream level, and at the individual level. And so, there's a number of layers of leaders there that all need to take the appropriate amount of time to give it the consideration that it really deserves.
Yeah, and that's a tough thing to do. Having participated in that process, it does take a lot of thought and consideration for your team. So speaking of that, taking that decision down to the next level, what sort of factors do the leaders take into account when they're thinking about recommendations for individual bonus distributions? So what are some of those things they would be thinking about?
Well, everyone has maybe a little bit different approach to it, but I think in general, everyone is looking at what is that particular individual's contribution to the team, what is their contribution, what is their impact on the value stream, and what is their impact on the IFMC. And so examples of that, you may have some folks that are very, very competent technically, and so they provide really good value in technical knowledge. You may have others that might be a little bit lighter on the technical knowledge, but inspire other people and cause a higher level of energy amongst other people and really inspire more teamwork. And so that can be within the team itself, but some folks have opportunities to do that through the whole value stream. And of course, with the USB business model and with the ability to what we now refer to as freelance opportunities, with freelancing going on, there's opportunities to inspire others throughout the IFMC and release lots of energy. And that energy is really what helps us get results and causes customers to want to keep coming back and give us more orders.
When we recruit and we talk about discretionary bonus as one of the unique things about the IFMC, sometimes that's a tricky thing to talk about because we can't give them formulas. We can't give them like what's the magic recipe as to how this is all figured out. But we kind of just sum it up into, the people who continue to add value and find new ways to add new value and learn new things and go above and beyond the base expectations. They really appreciate the discretionary bonus program. And the other ones who aren't as eager to step up and go above and beyond and work well with those around them maybe don't appreciate it as much. And so that usually is a very simple way to describe it to potential new employees that they'll understand. So, but we do get this a lot. When someone says, well, I'd rather just have those dollars in my weekly paycheck. How would you respond to somebody who says that?
Well, the beauty of the IFMC is that different business units can have different compensation strategies. And so, if we take it to extremes, a business unit, because of maybe the market it's operating in, maybe because of the type of technology, there could be a number of reasons, but it is possible for business units to choose to pay very generous base pay and no bonus. But there's, that really comes down to choices that are advantageous for that business unit itself. And it takes a different management style to manage with no bonus as compared to with a bonus. And so there are a whole host of forces at work, so to speak, but that is a business unit choice. And it's a matter of the leader deciding how they want to operate their business. In general, though, I strongly favor the bonus program with a lower base pay. And the reason for that is that it really boils down to sharing the risk. So if we go all the way back to the farm, at the beginning of the year, you don't know what's going to happen that year. But the one thing you're pretty sure of is that once every 3 or 4 years, you're going to have a really tough year. And somehow you need to manage that. You need to figure out how to live reasonably, but you've got to be saving for when the tough times hit. And so that applies to startups as well. And particularly because of us being up at the end of a peninsula up here in northern Michigan, it's very, very difficult to mass produce anything or do anything of large scale up here unless you're harvesting rocks or trees or natural resources that are already here and just shipping them one way. But if you're shipping material in and out, you've got a significant disadvantage up here. And so what we've figured out how to do is add a lot of intellectual property, add a lot of craftsmanship on those trucks that we send out of here. But there's a lot of variables. We don't know exactly how that whole year is going to look. So my strong preference and our normal starting point is to start with a reasonable but on the low end of base pay, and then be generous when there's rewards to be shared.
I think that last answer that you just gave to that final question is really key to understanding everybody's individual role in the big picture of the IFMC. So I really appreciate that you just shared that answer. So we are right up against the end of our time here. So do you have anything else you'd like to add about the bonus topic or anything else?
Well, there wouldn't be bonuses available if it wasn't for the energy and the hard work and the competencies of the whole team. And so, everyone on this call is part of making that happen. And I just want to thank everyone for their role in enabling us to distribute the bonuses like we do. So thank you.
All right. Well, Greg, as always, thank you so much for your time. I know you have a very busy calendar, so we really do appreciate it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
For everyone else who's listening, we will be in touch with an email regarding the next Equip Live. Thanks for joining us.
Have a good evening, everyone.